Well, howdy, everyone. Welcome to Criminals and Phantoms. There's a song for you. Alrighty. So, just lightly in the background. That's not too loud, is it, Sonia? Not blowing out your ear holes this week?
No, it's
Great.
good.
This is Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen, which is what this week's episode influenced. This week's episode topic influenced a lot of different pop culture and media, film, TV, books, music. Um, so before we get into any of that, though, that motherfucker Landon, Sonia. For those of you who actually
Tisk tisk.
do tune into these shows, right? Yeah, tisk tisk. You tell him, Sonia. You know, right, that last week I said, oh, guys, we're going to be off next week. It's the Super Bowl. There's the UFC. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your time of freedom. And what did he say, Sonia?
Put a show on.
He said, "Oh, well, we're gonna not do a show because of something that's happening another day. Oh, boo! Dylan's gonna skip a show. Landon wouldn't skip the show. Oh." And I said, "Landon, if you want to do a show, I'll do a show." So I messaged Landon. I say, "Hey," midway through the week, I say, "Hey, what do you want the topic to be?" No response. So I send him what the topic's going to be. I say, this is the topic. He gets back to me today. Hey, I'm not going to be on today. I'm not going to be home in time. Now, I don't mind that he's not here, Sonia, but he made such a big deal about not having a show.
Plus about the music, too.
Yeah, and the music. Oh my god, every week, I gotta have music and we gotta have a whole setup here. I don't know what he thinks this is. This isn't dinner and a show. This is just a show, what is this, a musical? But so, Sonia, how was your week?
Good. Busy, but good.
Busy? What'd you do?
Work. Basically work.
Sounds fun. How are the dogs, Sonia?
They're good.
Sonia has a fleet of animals. There's dogs, there's cats. What else do you have, Sonia? Just dogs, cats?
Just that, yeah.
Nothing unique. No chinchillas. No raccoons.
No.
Don't have a lemur.
No.
No. I wouldn't put it past you. Sonia's the kind of person that has a fucking zebra in the backyard.
Stashed away.
Oh, God. From your time in Australia, you brought back a kangaroo.
Yeah.
He had a little Joey. Fuck. How long has it been since you've been on? It's been a minute since you've been in Australia.
Oh, it's been a few years.
Yeah, because when I interviewed you at some point, you were still actively there.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute. Once again, for those of you who are interested in the song in the background, you can look it up. It's Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. And in the song, right, he talks about being the killer. And when he's sort of talked about the song before he's performed it in concerts, he says that it's a song about isolation and how it's about what happens when you have nowhere to go and, that isolation takes over and you can't connect with people. And so it's a great song. It has great lyrics. I think you guys will like it. And there's the final lyrics. He says, he's asked, why did you do it? And he says, I guess there's just a meanness in the world. So that was fantastic. And Landon's going to be so excited that there was music, and we're probably going to get muted and whatever. So I think it's time, Sonia. Are you ready?
Let's get started.
So let's get it started. Yeah. All right. So Charles Starkweather was born in 1938 in Lincoln, Nebraska. It was a small town where there wasn't much happening, there wasn't anything but a convenience store, basically. And even in downtown, there was cornfields around, Sonia, imagine you drive like downtown and somebody has a cornfield, So he was a really good kid. He came from a mostly hardworking family, but a decently sized family. His mother was the breadwinner, which for this time period, was not exactly common. And he was a good kid until he ended up going to school. And they say that even as early as kindergarten, right, he was an outcast and that he was bullied until he was big enough to become the bully himself, at which point nobody bothered him because they were really scared of him. So did you know anyone like that in school that was just a dick?
Yeah, there was always people like that, especially
See,
in high school. Yeah.
I feel like I got pretty lucky. I mean, for the most part, the people I went to now I can't. I went to a very small school, but for the most part, I mean, people wouldn't go out of their way to be shitty. I mean, at least not to me, you know. So as I said, right, as he grew older, he grew more and more vicious, more and more angry. Something's happening outside? Jesus, it's a dispute. So as he got older, he would model his look after actor James Dean. Now, if you know anything about James Dean, right, he was a very famous actor, and he had this knack for having that sort of bad boy attitude. He would wear the leather jacket, and he was seen smoking a lot.
Slicked
He was,
hair.
yeah, he had slicked hair. I mean, very much the male staple of the time, right? Of the 50s. And I mean, that really is sort of an intimidating look, you know? So he graduates, all right? He gets past what was described as the hardest part of his life. And God, I mean, he didn't have a long life though. This is the crazy thing is like they talk about education being the hardest part of his life and the hardest aspect of his life, but he would only live a year, you know? Yeah, wild. So after he graduated, he would become like a PE assistant, and then he would get work as a sanitation worker, as a trash collector. And it was around this time that he, at the age of 18, would meet Sonia, his 13-year-old girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate. Sonia, thoughts?
That's disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, the more we
I get
do,
age is just a number, but still, she was kind of minor.
the more
Pretend.
we do these old stories, the more I realize that, like, back in the day, people did not think that having these relations with kids was anything. They didn't care, and that's so strange and peculiar to me. That, like, in today, because when did the separation happen, right? Because we've done stories about the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and in almost all of those stories where there's couples, there were dudes clear into their 30s when we talked about Texarkana who were dating 13-year-olds. So, like, when did we as a society say, hey, what are you doing? Do you think it was the 80s? Do you think it was the 2000s? Do you think it's like recent?
I don't think people cared. They just date whoever.
That's the thing. I mean, you go online and you see people there. They try to cancel Leonardo DiCaprio because he dates 18-year-olds. So like clearly as a
Well, yeah.
society,
Well, they go based on looks, basically.
yeah. Well, that's
Or an
100%
older
true.
woman. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole other thing. That's a whole double standard thing. Is like if it's an old lady dating a young kid, no one says anything. Um, Lovely Pepsi. By the way, Diet Cherry Pepsi is far better than regular Cherry Pepsi. I just have to throw that out there. So he would meet her when she was 13 and they would begin a relationship quickly thereafter. On the last day of November in 1957, he would go to a service station. Now, a service station is basically a gas station. Back in the day, they would, these communities would have your gas station, your convenience store, your oil change, all of these things were in one. And really, you would think that in a capitalistic world that we're in, right, you would think that they would like bring that back. Like Walmart would have,
Everything.
yeah, you would think that, like, oh man, I can go to Walmart, get my car washed, get my dick sucked, and buy a carton of cigarettes all in one place.
Yeah.
What, you can't say dick sucked? Jesus, he's fucking a 13-year-old. You're mad at me, Sonia. Be
I
shaming me.
didn't say anything.
I know, but it's just fun to mess with you. So he had gone to the service station in hopes to get Carol, who again was a child, a Christmas gift. He wanted to get her a stuffed animal. And now this part of the story is different depending on who you ask. Either he asked them if they would take credit and they turned it down, or he asked them, hey, basically, I don't have the money now, but there's a chance I can get it later. Can I just take it now? And the guy who was working, Robert Culvert, had said no. So whatever the case was, Sonia, does this seem like something that to you would trigger somebody to just start killing people?
No, I would
Because as
just
we
go somewhere
see,
else.
yeah, see,
Or get a
so,
job. Like,
so
jeez.
well, apparently he had a job. He was a
Yeah, what
garbage
happened to
collector.
that money he collected?
Well, he would go around. He would go around, and they said in the documentary, right, that he had ambitions of being rich, but he knew he was never gonna do anything with his life. And so, like, he would be in the rich towns picking up garbage, and like he would find himself angry and jealous over what they had because he didn't. Right. So he goes on, and over the next day, basically, and here's the other thing. Here's what I don't understand. Right. So he couldn't afford the stuffed animal.
I know.
But throughout the night, he would return to the store 2 or 3 more times, and he would buy cigarettes and
I
candy and other
know.
stuff of
Like,
that
why
nature.
not just
So he had,
use that
maybe,
money?
I don't know. I don't know what was happening. At any rate, right? Uh, at this point, he would abduct the clerk. He would drive him to a remote area, and he would kill him with a shotgun and leave him for dead on the side of the road. Now, it's believed that there was a struggle for the gun, and that uh, Robert was left damaged even before he was shot. That when they were fighting for the gun, basically he got his ass kicked. Um, and when I heard this point, I found it interesting because there's a chance, right, in some other multiverse, right, that Robert wins and that none of this happened, right? Or there's a chance that, like, you know, they don't fight for the gun and he decides, hey, I didn't want to do this, But he killed Robert. Charles killed
For the
Robert.
stupid toy or gift.
Yeah, for a fucking teddy bear.
You know.
And man, it sets him down a path of legitimate destruction. Now, I have to ask Sonia, do you believe that this was his first killing?
I don't think so.
I don't either. And they do
With
not,
his attitude, no.
they don't talk about him like killing animals as a child or anything. And I'm not saying that he did. But what I'm saying is like, I don't think someone wakes up one day and decides I'm going to go on a killing spree.
I know.
And I think, especially considering the fact he was 19 years old, right? For him to wake up and say, I'm going to kill a guy over something this small, he's been killing shit for a long time. This is the first time we've learned about it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with the next group of murders, because he was not a suspect at all in this killing. As a matter of fact, just so he wasn't a suspect, he would change the look of his car and he would dump the gun in a river.
So he
But
had money to change the look on the car, or he
I
did it
don't
himself?
know. Sonia,
You
I
still
have
need to
no
use the money
idea.
for that.
I have no idea. You would, but see, that's the whole thing. None of this makes sense. And that's why it's a perfect movie plot, because none of it makes sense. I think he was just looking for a reason to kill a guy. That's what I think.
I think he wanted freebie
Do you?
instead of paying. Yeah.
I was gonna make a handy joke, but those
I
are
know.
yours.
The look on your face. Yeah. I knew
You can't say the word freebie, and I don't go to prostitution, Sonia. What the hell? January 21st, 1958. So, a full month removed, nearly two. Right? Charles enters his girlfriend's home. So he enters Carol Ann's home, and he kills her father, her dad, or her stepfather, I guess, and her 2-year-old stepsister. Now, here's where things get interesting because prior to this point, he was acting alone. This is where we have to speculate. Sonia, with everything that we watched, did it seem to you like she was a participant, or did it seem to you like she was a hostage?
hostage. No, she was definitely part of it.
Okay,
She
I
probably
think so
knew.
too.
She probably knew they had money, so
This is what I
they
think
needed
happened.
money.
This is what I think happened. I think he told her at some point, "Hey, I killed this guy at the gas station. That was me." And she said, "Oh my
Oh,
god, we
that's
should kill
hot.
my like she was like, we should kill my family." I think that's what happened. And I think he did. So after this happened, and it was brutal, you can Wikipedia it if you guys are really interested in the gory details. We make enough terrible comments on this show. I don't think I need to really get into it. But they would stay in the house for 6 days, and they would go as far as like posting on the door, "Don't come inside, everybody's sick." Realistically, they had put one of the bodies in the garden, one of the bodies in the outhouse, like in the toilet outhouse, one of the bodies was in a shed, like,
I
and they were
think in that
living,
chicken coop.
yeah, chicken coop. They were living there for 6 days. Now, family members, neighbors, they would show up, knock on the door, "Hey, is everything all right?" And they would say, "Everyone's sick," And so the people would leave. Uh, on the sixth day, the grandmother had come over and she had said, "Hey, I'm going to call the police." And so the two had gotten in the vehicle and they had left. Now, once again, Carol claimed her innocence, but Starkweather disagreed. Starkweather said that he killed the mother and the father, but that Carol herself killed the 2-year-old. She said she was a hostage and that he did it all. And this is not the only time that they will disagree on what happened. So after they leave, the bodies are found, and on January 27th, 1958, they went to 71-year-old August Myers' farm, and Charles knew Myers, or Meyer, because Charles and his father would hunt with him prior, and they killed him, and they killed his dog. And what kind of sick fucks kill a 71-year-old man and his dog?
Well, he wanted weapons because they knew he had weapons.
But that's the whole thing, though, is like, once
He
again,
didn't even steal money.
in court, right? Because you would think, well, I need a new place to stay. They didn't even stay there.
No.
So here, so yeah, they claimed in court that when he opened the door, he had a gun pointed at them, so they shot in self-defense. There is no evidence that the old man had a gun pointed at them at all.
I don't know.
So they leave the house, and they leave the farm, and their vehicle had been stuck in the mud, so they abandoned their vehicle. At this point, Robert Jensen and Carol King, who were both 17, 16, in that age range, they pick them up. They decide, hey, these two guys are stranded, we'll be good people. And they're held at gunpoint, and Charles tells them to drive to a nearby storm cellar, an abandoned storm cellar, and he shoots Jensen with a shotgun 6 times in the head. This is a man he does not know.
And the rest were in
Yeah,
the head.
there are pictures.
Yeah, it was
There are
brutal.
pictures. It's
Hmm.
it's very brutal, yes. Um, Once again, they dispute what really happened. Um, Carol King, uh, they allegedly, supposedly, had sexually assaulted before she was killed. Now, once again, Starkweather said that he did not commit that murder, that that was all Carol. Carol said that she was in the car the whole time. So, who really knows? I mean, I will say this, right? The people who were interviewed in the documentary did not seem to be Team Carol. They really seem to think that she got set free, and we'll talk a little bit about that in literally a second because we're the story is winding down. But there was something really weird that somebody said in the documentary, Sonia. Did you pick up on the guy who went to school with Carol and he said
Yes.
in art class the teacher yelled at her, beat her or something, and she said, "One day I'm going to kill you." And
Yeah.
his response was, "Well, that's just what we said at the time." I don't
I'm sorry. No.
I
In my time in high
I
school,
don't
no one
think,
ever said that.
and especially in the
Maybe in their
1950s.
head, but not out loud.
Yeah, I don't think I would have ever threatened to kill anybody. But like he said, the way he made it sound is like everybody every day was going to school like I'm gonna fucking kill your ass, you know?
Like if that was a threat, you would call the cops for
Yeah,
that.
I thought that that was something that was worth noting because it was really a weird statement that I'm almost surprised they didn't cut from the program. Um, so the duo went on to murder an industrialist along with his family, his maid, and his dog. They would then steal his car. At this point, the police had a really good idea of who was committing these crimes, and they knew that the vehicle was gone. They knew what the vehicle was, so they sort of put out the tags. They say, "Hey, if you see this vehicle, armed and dangerous." And the community, they talk about how people were giving each other guns. Like if I had a
Oh,
gun, Sonia, and you didn't have a gun, that I would
like
give
here
you
you go.
my gun so you were safe. Like that's how this fucking town, because there's a small town and things like this didn't happen. Um, Merle Collision, who is a traveling salesman, which just his last name's Collision, which that's like, you know, that's like
Suits
some
the salesman.
slapstick. Yeah. Um, he was sleeping in his car when the duo would break in, wake him up, and murder him. They would take his car, but it had a parking brake, which I guess was like new technology for the time. And Charles had no idea how to work the parking brake. So he flagged down someone who tried to help him, and then he pointed a gun at that guy. But as he did that, a police officer pulled up to also help. So that guy ran to the cop and was like, "Hey, it's Starkweather. He's going to kill me." They get into his car. They have a high speed chase. And while they're going upwards of 100 miles an hour, the officer pulls out his gun and shoots through the windshield of the vehicle. I can't imagine taking that shot, let alone making it. He shoots through the windshield
And hit the ear.
shatters. Yeah. And when the Sonia, what is happening? That sounded like a windshield crashing.
That would be the sound effects for the window. I mean, for the gun going through the window.
So, so you're, I hate you. So, fuck. So he gets the windshield shatters completely, and Starkweather, who's driving, gets like stabbed by the windshield. Like it was perfect. And so he stops the vehicle because he's afraid to die. He wants to get medical help. And the sheriff or deputy, whoever it was, went on to like do an interview, and they said he only stopped because he thought he was going to die. That's the kind of yellow son of a bitch he is, which is just such a good quote, especially for the time period where people didn't use such aggressive language. Um, and so the two were both trialed tried. Charles was executed by the electric chair in 1959, and Fugate was paroled after 17 years. So she was the youngest person, and she may still be the youngest person to get hit with a maximum sentence first degree murder. But 17 years later, she would be paroled and she would be a free woman. And she would go on to get married and she would live, a normal life. And her husband, in a couple of years ago, they would get in a car accident and he would fatally die, which is the fucking irony. The irony that
She caused it.
there are people who believe that she did cause the crash, but I just think that the irony of, even if she didn't cause the crash, the fact that her first love and seemingly her last love both, pretty much are brought to an end by a vehicle is kind of, ironic. um
It's
so
karma.
she was yeah so she was set free in 1976, and in 2020 she would go to the parole board and she would ask to be pardoned, basically, and they denied it because there wasn't enough evidence to prove, that she should be paroled or that she should be pardoned. What's interesting is that many of the family members of the victims spoke on her behalf. I find that so fucking wild, Sonia. I heard this and it blew my mind that they, I guess they believe her story that she was just a hostage. I don't know. I don't think so. It doesn't seem to fit. The profile to me seems to be that they are a couple who killed together. And I mean, not that I trust Starkweather necessarily or what he said, but like, he gave detail where she did not. Her whole thing was like, "Oh, I sat in the car." Oh, well, did you hear why didn't you try to escape? Did you hear the 17 gunshots he put into a guy's head? Like, that's the thing that I found interesting. Like, the judge, the jury, the judge,
She
no
had the
one
chance to run away.
no one ever talked about all the chances where she had to get away. And sure, she could have said, "Oh, I was scared," but like, it doesn't to me it doesn't add up, right? And if there's anything that Judge Judy taught me, it's that if it doesn't add up, it's probably not
Yeah,
true.
true.
There, I
Yep.
see Sonia now. Sonia,
Yeah.
she's watched Judge
She's
Judy.
the best.
They have Judge
I
Judy up
love
there
her.
in Canada. Of course you do. You're the kind of person to like Judge Judy.
Yeah, she
um
was awesome.
I thought that this was a good Valentine's Day story to do. That's why I did it 100%. Um, I thought it is Women's Month here, but also I thought, it's Valentine's Day week. We would
The
do a
couple.
nice, nice couple. I didn't want to do one as obvious as like Bonnie and Clyde. Um, that would have been no good. But so these events would influence a couple of different movies and, as I said, songs. So if you guys have never seen Natural Born Killers with Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis, the characters, the main characters in that film were influenced by these two. Um, by the way, a great movie if you've never seen it. It's funny how Juliette Lewis's face has melted as she's got older. Because, like, back in the day, she was like considered to be one of the prettiest women on the planet,
I like her, yeah.
and now she looks yucky.
Does
Um,
she?
and then the film Badlands, which came out a little bit earlier, has Martin Sheen, Sissy Spacek, and it's another good movie. Bruce Springsteen seeing that poster, the poster for Badlands, is what gave him the inspiration to write Nebraska, which is the song I played at the beginning of the show. Overall, though, Sonia, I think it is time to wrap it up, right? So,
Yes.
What are your final thoughts, Sonia?
If you see the world with a vision of love, you will find everything so beautiful and meaningful.
You do this shit just to piss me off now. You purposely find the most obnoxious. Can you read that again?
Why?
I was judging you too hard. I didn't hear
Yeah,
it.
no. If you see the world with a vision of love, you will find everything so beautiful and meaningful.
My final thought is that Landon's a bitch for not being here. and that he had better be here for the next show, which let me look at the schedule. I believe I know
Unless
who
he's
it is.
traveling.
Unless he's traveling, of course. If he has an excuse, that's okay. Next week's show is Irene Schroeder. We can all tune in and talk about Irene Schroeder. Until then, this is Criminals and Phantoms. For Sonia Barbier, I'm Dylan Holiday. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy your Super Bowl, your UFC, Valentine's Day. What you talking about?
Party time.
Yeah,
I don't even watch it.
Sonia's given free handies at the halftime show.
Why not?
Jesus Christ.